Hi, this is Shadowcoast and welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll be discussing Necromunda Underhive Wars and reviewing content posted by the devs on game mode options. Before we begin, I am trying to grow my channel and appreciate a subscribe and thumbs up if you find this video helpful. In the description below, you will find links to the various sources I reviewed before creating this video, as well as timestamps so you can jump to specific chapters of the video. Now for the good stuff. I would make a quick note that the developers and publishers were both involved in Mordheim, and I expect to see many similarities in Underhive Wars. I'll be referencing things I experienced in Mordheim for comparison's sake in lieu of not seeing actual Underhive gameplay yet, which I am very eager to see. In reviewing the devs' blog on game modes, they emphasize they want to focus on finding a good balance between gameplay momentum, pacing, and strategic choices on two different levels, specifically battles and gang management. To do this, the game will not focus on one-off engagements, but rather string together, as the devs put it, a complex yet approachable formula that will allow us to witness and forge the evolution of our gangs, so we not only become attached to our fighters, but also are able to see them evolve from one encounter to the next. In order to achieve this, the game is designed to thrust our gangs into multiple explosive scenarios in every play session. While the devs do not outline specifics, they do go on to explain that we'll be forced to manage injuries, which is similar to Mordheim, swap fighters in and out between engagements to take advantage of various synergies between career compositions, and experiment with stats, skills, and equipment systems. Reading this does sound very exciting, but I will be curious on how they'll manage to create a balanced approach, or if we, or me, as a player, will quickly regress to min-maxing out our teams or focusing on a single gang composition and loadout. On a personal note, I do hope they devote more time to balancing each aspect of the game, as I tended to favor specific group layouts in Wartime, which I found to be far superior to others, although that might have just been me. Interested to hear your comments in the comments section. The devs did take time to address the 5-member limit for active crews, as they've had a fair amount of pushback from the community. While I agree, I will be curious to see how it all balances out on the battlefield. One complaint I did have of Mordheim was the time it took between turns, and limiting deployment to 5 members each will hopefully help address this challenge, especially if there are 3 to 5 gangs on the battlefield for a total of up to 20 fighters at once. That's a lot of time to wait between moves. The devs specifically say that they believe the 5-fighter active crew will make perfect sense when we get our hands on the game, which makes sense, but also raises an eyebrow as we have not seen gameplay yet. So I'm hoping that comes soon. Moving on to the game modes, which is the main focus of this video. There will be 3 primary game modes in Underhive Wars, which are Story Campaign, Operations, and Online Skirmishes. The devs recommend we start with the Story Campaign to plunge ourselves into the Underhive and learn basic gameplay mechanics. The Story Campaign is purportedly to be an immersive and explosive single-player campaign that spans 15 action-packed missions written by the acclaimed Warhammer 40,000 author Andy Chambers. For those who do not know, Andy has worked on a large variety of Warhammer projects ranging from numerous board, card, and miniature games to several role-playing games, and also worked on StarCraft II as the lead story writer, if I'm not mistaken. While I have not read any of his books specifically in the Warhammer universe, I am familiar with some of his other works, and this makes me even more excited for the main storyline campaign. For reference, I was originally more focused on operations and the multiplayer options specifically, just given the content I like, but I'll be interested to see what Andy has done and how he has made this main storyline campaign hopefully something that will be enjoyable and fun as we learn the basic gameplay mechanics. Now, these 15 missions are story-driven adventures that will have us follow the fate of 3 infamous gangs and will have us delving deep into the entrails of Hive Primus. The devs go on to explain the main story campaign will be led by a colorful cast of protagonists from the rival factions that will eventually collide as the story takes us deep into the Underhive, seeking long-lost treasures and forcing us to encounter all kinds of dangerous and memorable characters along the way. Or so they say. That brings us to our next game mode, Operations. Operations is a game mode that I'm particularly excited about, just given my general playstyle of games like this, where I want that replayable single-player experience. As the devs put it, Operations is a game mode that is focused on providing us the ability to have an endless, replayable single-player gameplay loop. From what I've read, the game mode will put us at the center of leading our gang through different sectors of the Underhive, where we'll battle to gain control of their resources while defending our headquarters against rival factions. In Operations, we'll start our journey by selecting a district, which will consist of multiple locations to explore and contain a set number of missions. By selecting a district, we'll also be modulating the overall difficulty, base amount of experience gained by fighters after each fight, number of enemy gangs present, enemy crew ratings, and sector rewards. The devs did outline that selecting a district will also impact or in great detail, but it effectively sounds like this will impact the probability that our headquarters will be raided or determine the ability for us to raid enemy headquarters. So we'll see how this plays out, and I am eager to learn more. Each district will also have its own associated house request, a specialized, special and randomized optional challenge that we can accomplish for addition completion rewards. Once we enter a district, we'll be given the opportunity to select up to 2 different facilities, which will grant various bonuses at different intervals. Furthermore, there will be a currency that we can acquire called Infamy Points. Infamy Points are bound to our entire account profile and can be used on any of our created gangs to purchase or upgrade Infamy skills, which modify the current district we're battling in, or our gang is participating in. This reads something similar to what we saw in Mordheim, and I can see how this mechanic will be interesting as we can use it across our various gangs. One caveat that the devs did outline here is that infamy skills will also sometimes require us to make trade-off decisions where we might be able to increase the health points or hit points or damage output of all enemies in a sector in exchange for gaining extra credits or reward caskets at the end of missions. That'll be an interesting interplay of how do we quickly gear up our gang and earn better rewards versus creating or increasing the level of difficulty we're going to face. Now, one caveat with operations is I am not sure if we're limited to the specific district or if we only start in that district and can move into other districts. It wasn't explained, and I'll be interested to see how this is handled, as I do want to have that long, arduous operation where I spend hopefully tens, if not hundreds of hours developing my gang until we become basically an invincible army. Now, we can gain infamy points by completing various infamy tasks, which can be gained in all 3 game modes and will include tasks such as win a battle in PvP or complete story mission X or put 10 brawlers out of action. So infamy will, I guess, passively being gained, or we could actively gain it. I'm sure they have callouts on how we can gain infamy points. So that'll be critical, and depending on the options there, we'll see how important that is to try to gain those infamy points so we can spend them on much needed skills or infamy skills, as they outline. The devs do go on to explain that we'll have to manage shifts, where each gang commander present in a district, us and the AIs, will select a mission for the gang to undertake. Effectively, one shift will be one mission from what I've read. During each shift, there will be a set number of missions to select from at any time. In this manner, every gang could select the same mission and create a chaotic, challenging battle situation where we're all fighting over the same mission objective. Or alternatively, it is also possible that we could be the only gang to select a mission, in which case it sounds like we'll just automatically win and receive the rewards. At the end of each shift, we will receive a mission report that outlines what happened in other missions. So in other words, if 2 AI gangs met and fought, it sounds like we'll have an after-action report to understand who won and other potential implications. An additional aspect in the game comes in the form of events and intel, which might lead us to discover valuable artifacts. Now, in this scenario, it sounds like these might be a global thing, or I don't know if they're gang-specific, but I would imagine that in these scenarios, gangs would converge on these artifacts, intentionally creating high-conflict situations. Now, this can be handled really interestingly and add a special dynamic to the game. Although I don't have additional details on this yet. Now, it is also possible to uncover enemy gangs' headquarters, and I believe it's also possible for them to uncover our headquarters. In this scenario, it'll provide us the opportunity to attack or conversely defend these fortified locations to steal or protect resources. This seems to play into the high alert aspect that I mentioned earlier, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. What I'd be a little bit curious about is, do we encounter these headquarters during missions? Do they maybe pop up if we gain intel, and then that becomes a mission in and of itself? And so we'll see how that plays. And I'll also be interested to see if it's possible that if we actively deploy with 5, would we then have to pull from our reserves to defend our headquarters if we're attacked without knowing? So this could add some very interesting aspects. I also like the idea of having to leverage our reserves to defend our headquarters, because that will incentivize us to develop more fighters to make sure that we have kind of the active crew and reserve crew, and then crew members that might be injured, we'd also have to account for. That's just my personal take on it. I'll be interested to see how it plays out since there isn't a lot of information at this time. Now, between missions, we'll also have the ability to return to our hideout or headquarters in order to manage our gang, which includes swapping out fighters from our active or inactive rosters, upgrading stats, skills, and equipment loadouts, healing injuries by replacing limbs and bionics. We'll also be able to install implants, which will be an interesting aspect to the game, as I imagine implants will impact stats, possible abilities, or other aspects. It'll also be interesting to see how replacing limbs with bionics works, as it was mentioned in the previous dev blog that bionics could potentially determine the rate of healing and how long you are out of action, your fighter is out of action. Now, overall, I'm glad to see something akin to operations, as this is the perfect game mode to practice, test, invest in our skills, loadouts, experiment, and grow attached to our gang members. So this is something I'm personally excited for. The third and final game mode is Online Skirmish, where we can test our skills against other players. I'm happy to report, per the devs blog, that the game will include 2 online modes, which are Contest and Exhibition. Both appear to include matchmaking and the ability to set up custom matches. The online battles and modes contain various objectives and scenarios that can be fought across 26 handcrafted vertical battle environments. That seems to be a fair number of maps, which I am excited to experience. In both online modes, we'll be able to take on 1v1, 2v2, or free-for-all, as well as other custom scenarios against other players. Exhibition mode is effectively an unranked or friendly matchmaking system where we can engage other players without the risk of lasting consequences. Exhibition matches will not impact our gangs beyond the match, but will also not offer any rewards when we do win. Contest mode, on the other hand, sounds way up more my alley, where we'll take on enemy players with lasting and permanent consequences. At the end of each contest match, the winning team will be compensated with a reward casket. Furthermore, all items looted from the environment we just fought in will be ours to keep, including equipment stolen from enemy fighters, which sounds pretty awesome. So I'll be interested to see how this works, and if we can just loot all the equipment from enemy fighters, not only in online skirmish modes, but as well as the campaign and operations. They didn't go into that in those modes. Now, on the other side of the coin, there will be lasting negative repercussions that carry over to our gang permanently in this mode. These include losing gear, receiving injuries, and even possibly permanent death to our favorite fighters. So we have to be ready to win on the battlefield and feel fairly confident in our gang composition we're fielding in this mode. Now, having reviewed both the dev blogs in full detail, my excitement continues to grow for Necromunda Underhive Wars. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below, and I always appreciate a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we hope to see you in another video. Shadowcoast out.